Welcome to TruthStream. I'm here with Michele Lowry, Animal Intuitive and Soul Expansion Facilitator. And I was introduced to Michele by our good friend Lisa Schimmerhorn. And Michele has helped Lisa and myself with our senior dogs who are, getting on in years and all the difficulties that go with that. And I'm extremely grateful to Michele, and she's got a heck of a story. So having said that, welcome, Michele. How are you?
Thank you so much, Scott. I'm doing great, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Good, good. Happy to have you here.
Thanks.
So, so I guess a good place to start would be uh, what you do and how you came about doing it. It's a big
Oh,
question.
yeah. So, in a nutshell, um, I
Maybe
have a
we should
rhodesian
introduce your
ridgeback.
dog.
I have a nearly 2-year-old, 95-pound dog at my back, and every time he moves, you're going to see me do this. Um, really, this whole thing started back in 1999. I had another Rhodesia Ridgeback at the time, and he died at the age of 7, very, very tragically, following a vaccine. And he was dead within 6 weeks from lupus and kidney failure. And he was my first dog. He was my heart. He was everything to me. And so when he died, it just sparked something in me. I was also going through a divorce at the time. You know how they say you got this like period of time and everything happens all at once, but it
Yes.
just sent me on. Yes, I do. So it just sent me on this mission of why did my dog die? What just happened? And he launched me. He really, in all of that devastation, he launched me into looking at healthcare for animals in a different way. And so I ended up looking into nutrition and finding out more details about nutrition and what we're actually feeding our dogs and where the ingredients come from. And I had another dog at the time that was his son who had fear aggression. And I went on this mission. I wanted to fix his fear aggression. And I ended up doing it completely holistically. No drugs, no nasty training, no inhibitive actions of any kind. And I found that preservatives, chemicals, and the vaccines and the heart guard and all of those other things were all triggering his aggression. And so I did a detox on him and I changed his food, and he emerged into this amazing dog that had no fear aggression. And so it really kind of got me going on this, okay, we need to do this differently. And I believe Kobo's mission was to launch me into how do we do it differently. So over the years, I took workshops and I learned about energy work, and I learned about homeopathy and essential oils, and I learned about acupressure, and I learned about how the body worked. Um, and excuse me. And then what happened over time, I had a horse called Echo at the time, and he got really sick. I ended up relocating to Florida because I was living in America. And through him and through the universal alignment of amazing things, I ended up on the farm with a woman that did holistic care for animals, and she was a naturopathic doctor. And with her, she helped heal my horse naturally. And I studied with her for 2 years and realized that this was something I really wanted to get into. And so I launched my business back in 2001. Um, and then I was on this rampage of learning. I wanted to learn, I wanted to understand things, I wanted to experience things. I wanted to work with any animal I could get my hands on. I didn't care if I got paid or not. I just was really hungry to put everything I was learning into practice and get really good at it. And so it's developed over years. Echo was my mentor and guide for 21 years. And oh, I'm going to cry. And he he was the mentor that showed me who I really am. And every day he would remind me who I am and what I was capable of and what I was learning and who was I. And I have so many stories on him, but he also taught me to channel. So he would guide wisdom to me, and I would channel it, and I would put it out there and put his messages out there. So I was also developing this other telepathic, intuitive ability that I believe we all have. So I was developing that. And then it just went from there. I did shamanic training, and that's where I met Lisa. Um, and I started to envelop that and those techniques into the animals as well as people. And I just realized that so many things that go on with us, they reflect back to us because they ultimately want us to see ourselves in our truth. And so once I had that realization, it shifted everything of the way I was doing things and the way I was coming into sessions and the way I was communicating with the animals into a place of my tagline is seeing life through their eyes, and your animals have options. And both things are what we don't do with our animals. We rely on sources outside of ourselves. And I help people to know that their intuition is valid. They are talking to their animals and then developing that skill to hear what's coming back at them. So it's just been a 27-year journey so far of expanding and growing and going through my own challenges and my own healing process so I could be a better channel for the animals. And then showing other people how they can do it because I believe everyone can.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. Now, for you, is it pretty conversational when you're communicating?
It varies. When I started admitting that I was communicating, because I don't like labels and then
Hmm.
people presume you're a certain thing and you do things a certain way. But for me, I'm
Understandable.
very sensory based. So I'm always, my hands are my language and how I feel is what guides me. And so initially I would get feelings and knowings from the animals and then find ways to translate that so I could share with people what I was feeling and sensing. And then the more I did it, the more I started to hear them. So it's words, it's English. Sometimes they have accents. Sometimes they swear a lot. So that clearly they've learned from their family. Um, and and then I started to see visual was the last thing that ever came to me in my own development. And I started to see things. So if they had been through trauma, they would show me as much as they wanted to show me of the trauma so that we could understand why they were doing what they were doing and what was upsetting them. And then helping them to clear that and heal. Um, and so then it became multisensory. And if I felt like I wasn't getting the information I needed, I would ask them to send it in a different way. And then eventually I would find it. Right, buddy? And I love him. Um, and so it all developed. And now it's developed into a place where I can actually see inside the body and they can show me internally what's going on so that we can really get to the core of the problem and help fix it. So, as you work on yourself, you're going to develop skills that allow you to work around other beings and just be one in their energy. It's pretty transformational.
Yeah, I was. Well, I can't really say surprised to learn, but I found it interesting that my dog Lily, she's a Belgian Malinois, and she's 15, and she had a pretty rough seizure, and since she's had a couple, but those seizures were, as you know, I'm for the audience anyway. But I was surprised to learn that that was from a vaccine that she had in her puppy years, and
Yeah.
to think of how this can just lie dormant and they create such severe problems later in life. And I mean, we avoided most of that through her life, but I think everybody, when they take on a puppy, they're it's just something you do, a round of shots. And kind of like humans, it used to be a couple of shots, and now it's a whole laundry list of things. um you know uh I can't understand the motivation. And then with the food, the quality of the food. I was talking to Heather, who you know now. She with the corgi. Um, she spends more on her dog's food than she does on her own. It's like she does. It's awesome. But she notices a big difference. And when you think about, uh, I don't know, what's really in most dog foods, it's kind of awful. What do you
Yeah.
recommend for folks?
So, I'm a big proponent of raw food. Um, it's what they were designed to eat. Their enzymes work best with it. Their body knows what to do with it. There's no residual. Their body digests it quicker than any dry food. Um, and so it's overall a lot more healthier for them. So where people are okay with it, where that's something that that they feel comfortable doing, I always offer, raw diet, and I always describe to people, how to do it. There's some great websites out there now that will actually help you create your own raw diet if you want it. Um, and then I find the older dogs actually like it a little cooked. It's easier for them to digest as they get older. Um, And if people are vegetarians or vegans and they just can't do the meat thing, then there are some really good dry food kibble out there that can be an alternative. But honestly, there's no generic for me. That's probably one of the biggest things I've learned is that just because it's a dog, it doesn't mean that what you suggest for one dog is going to be for every dog. And so I always ask the dog, like, what do you want to eat, and I remind people, if we're going to open that door of communication, they will just let rip, and they'll just tell you all kinds of stuff. It's always good. Um, but they'll say, what proteins they like, if they want vegetables, and if there's anything else that they need, they tell me what supplements they need and what needs to be in the supplements. So it's very much a dog to dog diet. I don't even like the word diet. Um, and so it gets created by the animal, and that's why it works, because you're giving them everything they know that they need. um, and if they need herbal remedies or homeopathy, they know. They tell me what they need. They'll actually pick it out of my container. They'll pick out the remedies that they want. I mean, it's fascinating when you really honor their wisdom, and they know, and we don't have to guess, and we can just allow them to make those choices. um, their health is going to get better because we're not doing anything that's going against their body. And the vaccine life, vaccinosis is not something many people know about if they're not in the holistic world. But vaccinosis is a very real thing, that is basically the side effects of a vaccine. And so, depending on what's in the vaccine, depending on how healthy your dog is, depending on whether there's any stress or trauma in your dog's life, those vaccines will react to the body and create side effects. For Kobo, um, those side effects was lupus and kidney failure. I didn't know what I know now. I relied totally on the medical field, and they basically killed him. So not only did the vaccine kill him, but all of the medication that they told me to put him on was causing the side effects that we were trying to treat. So I learned so much from that dog in medication and what it does do and how it affects the body. Um, that it was a massive, massive learning curve. And what I learned from Kobo was, I said to him, "When you stop fighting, I'll stop fighting." And there came a day when he just said, "I can't do this anymore." And I said, "Okay." And so that is my thing. Any animal that I have that is hurting or is in that transitional phase, it's like, you fight, I'll fight. When you're done, you tell me, and we'll figure out what you need next. So vaccines is a big deal. it's a fine line. I mean, there are some that you have to have, and then there are some that you really don't have to have, and you certainly don't have to have them every year. So it's a subject that's been well versed, well researched. I'm happy to chat with people about it if they want to. It's very near and dear to my heart, and I've gone up against many vets around everything that I do because I know what I know.
Well, I've met some German shepherds. I'm sure there's plenty of other breeds, but German shepherds seem to be susceptible to this. They put them on antidepressants frequently, and that has always been a shocker to me. An antidepressant for a German shepherd. But what do you have to say about that? Because I mean, it sounds like a call to Michelle might fix your problems, But what happens with these? I'm assuming SSRIs and that type of thing. What happens with the dog?
Yeah, thanks for asking because it goes down to Western medicine is symptom controlling, right? And Eastern and alternative medicine is what's the core issue, why is it happening, and let's fix it from the core out. And then the symptoms go away and the body will heal if it's supposed to, but at least we're giving it that choice from the core. So what happens when a dog has behavioral changes or trauma that they just don't really come out of, and people can't handle the behavior that's happening, whether it's aggression, whether it's barking, whatever it might be, they're deemed to be either depressed or unmanageable, and they put them on Prozac. And it just it makes no sense to me. One, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm not in that world at all, but I can't imagine putting a dog that is trying to share why it's doing what it's doing on a drug that basically drugs it and numbs it down so that it just can't exhibit. And what I have told so many people is that if you have an aggressive dog and you put that dog on Prozac and the dosage is wrong, you will end up with a bomb that is just waiting to explode because it's suppressing everything and it needs to express out, not in. And when you go to the dog and you say, why are you acting the way you are? What happened? And how do we help you to alleviate this and to fix it? Prozac's never been the one they choose. They're not like, oh, yeah, put me on an antidepressant. That would work. There's a thousand other ways that these dogs want to heal. And some of it's releasing the trauma. Some of it's, very often there's things going on in the household, and when they get aggressive or they get noisy, they're actually trying to reset the energy in the house by stopping an argument or stopping the energy between two people. And when a dog barks or acts aggressive, what do? You stop what you're doing and you look at the dog. So it stops the problem. And then they go, oh, this is how I stop the problem. And then they go, and why am I on Prozac?
Well, just to revisit, for the audience, for how effective I've seen Michelle's work be. Lisa introduced me with the story about her own dog, who's also Lilly. It's kind of funny, same age
Yeah,
too. That she thought that they were at the end, that she was done, and after a session with Michelle, there were, I think it was some homeopathic remedies
yeah,
that Lily had picked out, as you say, and I think she said within an hour or something, she was like back to her old self. I mean, it was that quick. The improvement was pretty miraculous. And I know Lily also had selected some similar homeopathic remedies, and there was a big improvement that happened pretty quickly with her as well. So it's remarkably effective, and it's certainly, I think, a better idea than pharmaceuticals. I think everybody's kind of getting the message about pharmaceuticals at this point. As humans, we need
yeah.
to maybe extend that, to our animals as well. So
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's really what it's about is we still separate animal health from human health. And my mission for this long and beyond the grave is going to be that it's the same thing. The healthcare is the same, and the way we approach our own healthcare and the way we cleanse and eat good food and detoxify and get good supplements into us, it's the same for them. And with all the energy shifts and changes that are going on the earth right now, they're feeling it too, because if you're feeling it, they're feeling it. And the choices we make for ourselves and the choices we end up making for them are completely different. And the number of times I've just said to people, go with your gut, go with your intuition. If you go to the vet and you get a diagnosis or you get a suggestion on medication and something in you doesn't feel right, that is your animal saying, that's not right, that's not what I want. And don't be obliged, don't feel that just because they're the vet and they've prescribed it, that that's necessarily the best answer for your animal, whatever the animal is. And that's been one of the lessons for me, has been getting confident enough in what I do. And, sessions with like yours and Lisa's and others help me to understand there is another way, and it does work, and it does create change. And then as it creates change for them, it's creating change for their people. So, and we talked about this before. It's not owner. There is no owning an animal.
No, no, that's always rubbed me wrong. I had a friend that she went through vet school. Throughout my knowing her, and she was very passionate about animals, and she wanted to work on. Well, she went on to work on beluga whales and panda bears and exotics all over the world. She spent a $500,000 on her education, and but it was so emotionally trying on her, and I think it broke her in a lot of ways. This transition happened where she'd call me crying, and she'd say, "All I do is kill puppies and kittens all day long." She said, "I just hate it. I hate my life," and I think she had to harden up to that somehow. And she got to the point where she said, "I don't want a dog. I don't even want a dog. I don't want to have a pet." That's where she got to, and but it gave me a lot of insight into what was going on, because you think of veterinarians as just people that have just loved animals so much they wanted to have a career into helping them. But the system, uh, and what they go through, it's a little bit different than that. I mean, it's a different story, and I think that people in that field, you get to the point where you've invested so much of yourself and money and everything else into that career that it's kind of the point of no return. And I think they submit to it to some degree. Now, there are some holistic vets that I've talked to that have a very different attitude about it, but uh, yeah, it's pretty shocking. I mean, I guess it's everything that you see in human healthcare, in an even more primitive and less caring expression in veterinary medicine in a lot of ways, and it's kind of disturbing, because what alternatives are there? And of course, you are one of those alternatives, but um, you know, I hope to see a lot more of these alternatives for people on a more regular basis. I think this, we need to head in that direction for sure with our animals.
Yeah, I agree. And, I feel that when you study to be a vet, you have no idea what that education involves. And there's a lot of really traumatic things that they have to go through with the animals in order to learn what their trade is. But they're also taught in a box. And that's always what I share with people. They've done an education that's been boxed in. They're told, what dog food to sell and why. And, they're told these are the protocols, and they're generic. Nothing is ever this individual dog. And I'm generalizing, because I have met some wonderful vets out there that are Western vets, but generally speaking, you go to the vet and you're taught that when you're scared about something, you're fearful, something's going on, that you run to your vet and they tell you everything you're supposed to do, and you just do it and you don't ask any questions, and that's it. And you come home with a bunch of medication and you feed your dog, and your dog's going, ah! But you're like, no, no, the vet said this is what I have to do, and this is what they do, and they do it very shut down. Most people don't know what medications they're giving and why. Most dogs or cats or animals are actually completely over medicated as well as over vaccinated. So the body ultimately freaks out, and now side effects happen because where else is it going to put the chemicals or the toxins? So I feel there's a big educational piece in, if you can't have a conversation with your vet that doesn't agree with what they're saying, find another vet, because they're out there. I've met them, and they will have a conversation, and they will be compassionate, and they will understand why you're doing what you're doing. But if you're with a vet that says this is what you have to do, and they scare you into doing things, that is not veterinary medicine. That is not why they got into it. That is not the way it's done. That shouldn't be the way it's done. And watch your animal, because as you're talking to the vet, watch your animal. If your animal's hiding under the chair, if your animal's begging not to have a vaccine, if your animal's trying to get away from the vet and they have to muzzle, there are some animals that need to be muzzled because for other reasons, but watch your animals. Your animals in any given situation will guide you in the decisions to make. Because if your vet says something and your animal's freaking out, and you say to that vet, you know what, right now I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to think about it, or I'm going to wait, watch what your animal does, because they will go, thank you. Like, can we just go home now? Um, and I've said the same for dog trainers, because there are some horrific dog trainers out there, and there are some phenomenal dog trainers out there. And I never care how many letters they have after their name and how much training they've done. If your dog is cowering, that is not the dog trainer for your dog. So it's
True
really
story.
about inviting people to feel their intuition and know that they do have the truth within them, and to trust in that. And as harsh as it sounds, if you make a decision about your dog and your dog passes away 24 hours later, your dog was going to pass away 24 hours later anyway. And that's a whole other topic. That's probably a whole other show. But um, trust that you made the right decision for your dog, and your dog chose to leave anyway. But this way, the dog left in a much more balanced and loving and energetically sound way than anything that was going to be suggested. So take some of that guilt and relocate it into a place of heart and intuition and telepathy. So yeah, that's where the education lies, is being able to ask questions and being able to say no.
Yeah, I was really encouraged when I talked to these holistic vets. They're a little hard to see because they're so in demand.
Yeah.
You really have to get those appointments early on. But I like the direction things are going as far as those folks are concerned.
Oh,
And,
absolutely. Absolutely.
and with regard to the communication, I just think about the better your communication with your animals, the better the relationship. I know with Lilly, um, I I've always talked to her just like I would, a human being in the room. We have conversations. It's pretty funny, and she does react. It's hilarious. Probably not to the degree that you communicate, but you do help people open those pathways and communicate with animals, right?
I do. So many people say, "Oh my gosh, you have this amazing gift, and thank you so much." And I'm always very grateful for that. But I always say to them, it's not a gift. We were born being able to communicate with everything, with nature, with the trees, with animals, with our guides, with the earth. I mean, we were born that way. And, watch a kid's communicating with everything that's around it. Um, and so, what I love to do is also through workshops, show people how to tap in and remember what you know. You were born with it, but it gets shut down, or you used to do it and you got scared and you shut it down. And remembering that, because we're moving into a time where everything is asking for us to be in this one consciousness, which means we're talking with everything, however that talking happens. And so I love to share with people, find what sense of your five or six or seven senses that you have, which one is your most primary sense. So for me, it was feeling, knowing, touching was really kind of my priority, the one that I worked off of. Some people are very visual with their communication. Some people hear very clearly with their communication. Some people just know, and then they question it because it was so easily came through so easily. So the workshops help people to move out the blocks that are in there from life, that are inhibiting them to be that beautiful channel, with all things, your animals included.
It's so interesting. It just reminds me about the hike that I told you about, where it started with the mycelium, and then it was the trees, and then I was hearing things very clearly, and then I got very clear communication that was pretty outrageous, and I did doubt it for a long time, although it started to come in a lot more clearly after that event, and but but then over the next couple of years, there was evidence of everything that I was being told, clear, unmistakable, irrefutable evidence, and that's really something, because I mean it really, I can't think of any singular event in my life, and I've had some pretty wild ones that educated me more as to what we are, and you know how we are connected to all these things. So it's amazing. It's amazing that you're able to help people in this way.
Yeah, it's a passion. It's not all about me going out there and fixing all these animals. It's about me saying, yes, I can definitely help you and get you there and get you going. But how about, stepping in? And some people don't want to, right? It's not their life path. They're not interested. It's not their belief system. Um, Whatever it is, it's not for everybody. And so I've also learned that, when I came out of Reiki training back in 2005 to 2007, I came out blasting my way into the world going, I can completely heal the world. I can heal all these people. I can heal everything, right? I know Reiki now. And I learned pretty quickly that not everyone wants to be healed. Not every situation is to be healed, because there's a process of learning and exploring that happens, that you can't just come in and fix something when it's not supposed to be fixed. And so I learned really fast that that wasn't what it was about. And I've learned how to put my ego in check, going, I think I can fix everybody. That's not the truth. And then I learned how to dial it back into a place where I could show up with this energy and attract those people and those animals and those situations that would connect in with what I was channeling through me, to create healing or to create transformation or to create change in some way. And then you're more aligned to what you're supposed to be doing and with who, right? And you let go of, some people just aren't there. They're going to be skeptical. Some of my best clients started out skeptical. So, you know, sometimes you plant a seed and you tell somebody something and off they go. And then a year later, they're like, so that thing you told me a year ago, can I find out more about that now? So it's allowing people their own journey. I don't come in and change people. I come in and like walk alongside them and be harmonious with them and share whatever it is that I'm supposed to share with them for as long as I'm supposed to do it. And then they go off and I go off, and life moves forward. So it's
Yeah,
very,
experience really requires that contrast, and sometimes that contrast is really unpleasant. But it's, for a lot of folks, that's why we're here.
yes,
You can only uh, see something to the degree at which you're experiencing its converse.
yes.
It's just part of it. So we don't it wouldn't be productive to interfere every time with everything that was unpleasant.
No, that's taking on somebody else's life lesson and controlling it. And I'm not that person. I don't want to be that person. And I
Right.
stopped a long time ago thinking I was fixing people. And when I was working with people directly, I used to say, you have to want to be here and you have to want to do your own work. And I will support you. I will hold space for you. I will call in the guides and the energy, but you're doing the work. You have to want to clear yourself, enlighten yourself, shift yourself. That's not my I'm not taking that on. That's not my job. So, once you get really solid in how you're supposed to show up in order to support, then everything becomes a lot easier. We were talking earlier about how things come in and it should be effortless, and when it's not,
Exactly.
when you're pushing or when you're grabbing or when you're trying too hard, because there's effort involved in that. And so, again, like you were saying, I've done both because I like to test the theory to know what I'm doing is in alignment. And so, I'll push it a little bit just to go, oh, yeah, that's how that feels. And this is how this feels. And which one do I want? Which one do I want to choose?
Yeah, the best things you just can't effort your way into. They really, it just doesn't work that way. I'm learning that more and more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're talking about animals, and I, as I talked to you about it, I had horses growing up, and there's just this magic around horses, and so from your perspective, because this is a fascinating conversation, but what is it about horses in particular that makes them so magical? What's going on with horses energetically?
Thank you for asking. So I believe, right? I can't speak for everybody. I believe that horses come from a much more higher, elevated, higher frequency spiritual place. That they've come here in these massive bodies, right? I mean, 1,000 to 1,600 pounds of mass in order to show that contrast that we were just talking about. So my horse Echo not only mentored and guided me, but he mentored and guided many, many people, both remotely and in person. He was incredible in his being. And he wasn't a massive horse, but he was a very big boned and solid horse. And when people came up to him and they weren't standing in their fullest confidence and their fullest truth and showing up to be who they knew they were, but they just were shielding that for some reason, he would challenge them, and he would become very big and he would become very ominous, and he would walk towards them like he was going to trample all over them, which, you know, and he would have this massive energy that people would say was very intimidating. And I'd say, okay, yes, absolutely intimidating. But if you shift your energy and you stand tall and you open your heart and you are in your power, whatever that power is, watch what he does. And what he was doing, he was trying to get people to stand in their truth and who they were. And as soon as they did that, he softened and he dropped that energy, and he wasn't as bold and as brash, and he was the most heart-loving horse. And so people got to feel the difference. They got to feel the difference through visualizing what he was doing as they shifted. And I believe all horses do that. I've worked with Mustangs that are still very much connected to the prairie, no matter how they got off the prairie and into somebody's house, into someone's yard. Um, although I'm sure there are some. Um, they still are connected to the prairie. And the ones I've worked with have shown me that they're still running on that prairie, even though they've been gathered up by the BLM and taken off and done what they're all doing with them at auction and selling them off and everything. These Mustangs are not only still on the prairie, but they have a one consciousness that is very similar to the trees, all being connected around the world. They're all connected in this one consciousness, and they've shown me a place shamanically where they all gather when they pass, and they all go back to
Wow.
being together again. Yeah, absolutely amazing journey that I did shamanically to meet them. And so they have this presence that challenges us to be in that presence, and that whatever
Right,
emotion,
got the singles.
right? That's
Oh,
exactly
big time.
it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So that's echo, right? I guarantee you that you're feeling echo right now. Um, so when we are willing to stand in the presence of who we are, human based, but very much soul, spirit, is why we're here, right? To learn. And you stand with a horse heart to heart with no agenda, with no anticipation. You ask permission to be in their energy field because as humans, we've lost that respect of boundaries. And horses very much are in that place of boundaries, which is something we all need to remember. And when you honor all of those things, they literally soften in front of you. So they come in high frequency, but they use their massiveness to show us that contrast.
I think that was with my horse, and for the audience, I had a horse that the only reason I had a horse was because I was the only one that could handle him. He was very difficult for everyone. He would kick them and try and run them off on branches and so on. He just wasn't very nice, but he was great to me. And I get the sense now having this conversation that it's because I wanted to play, and I looked at him as a friend, and I think that the other humans around him looked at he's purpose built. We need to use the horse for the task or whatever. It wasn't about playing, and I think he was all about playing because he'd follow me around like a dog. We had a lot of fun, and yeah, but they have such a massive field and an energy field, and they're not all that welcoming if you don't have the right energy when you come to them. You're right. They're kind of selective in that regard. I think they're just really energetically sensitive.
They are very energetically sensitive. And over the years, it's been interesting to watch how the training methods have changed, how the way people are riding has changed. That as people are waking up, they're actually noticing that those old ways of training them, breaking their spirit, beating them up, all the crazy training methods that are out there that are so harsh, um, are pointless because you don't have to fight with them. They're not fighting. They don't want to fight. They want to please and they want to be around you and they want to walk around like a puppy dog. I have a miniature horse that is my second dog. I mean, that's what she does. And and when we challenge them in a way where we don't allow them to have a voice, and when we make them do things and we don't quit until they do what we ask, we haven't asked them why they're not doing something or why they're misbehaving. We haven't asked them what's going on for them. I used to joke with Echo when he was a little sluggish. And I say, were you up partying all night last night and now you're just really tired and you just don't want to go for a ride? What was going on with you last night that you're like this? And opening up that two-way conversation that allows them to say the saddle's hurting me, or my hip joint is out, or I'm just stiff because it's cold this morning. you know I lost my best friend yesterday and I'm grieving. I mean, it's across the board why they show up the way they do. And what happens is when you push them too hard, they become really aggressive. And it's because they're shouting at you like, somebody listen to me, nobody's listening to me right now. And they get labeled dangerous. And once they get labeled dangerous, they're shut away, they're sold at auction, they're transported wherever, or they have the shit beaten out of them. And I've seen dangerously labeled horses that in the right hands with somebody who wants to just listen and give them a voice and help them heal from the trauma that they've been in, be like puppy dogs. And they meditate.
Yeah.
They need to meditate with you, and you can put kids on their back, and they're like, okay, what are we doing with this kid? Because I want to make this kid feel better. And the dangerous was simply nobody's listening to me, and now I have to scream. So I always talk about communication as a volume, and they'll keep raising that volume in behavior, in physical action, because nobody's listening. And all we have to do is stay still long enough and quiet enough to hear them.
I'm just thinking back to my horse and how I'd love to ride him. No saddle, no blanket, no bridle. I just kind of loop my wrist in his mane to hang on, and that's like driving a car without a steering wheel in some people's way of thinking, but it worked. It really,
Yeah,
that was we had a lot of fun riding around that way.
yeah. It's
So
and that's honestly bare bones for most horses. You could probably do that if you when you have that level of trust and relationship with each other. Um, that is what it's all about. We've made it more complicated, like we've made everything complicated, and it's not. Animals are not complicated.
far less complicated than we make ourselves, I
Yes,
guess.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we learn how
Yeah.
to not be complicated so that, they can be less complicated. And then you find that place of balance where you just enjoy, like even with Maui pushing me around earlier, with him trying to get comfortable. But we just have an understanding. That's not him misbehaving or being pushy. He's just a big puppy trying to get comfortable on the couch. So you just start to see things in a different light, and that's something that channels out of me now, where someone will say they're having an issue and I'll share whatever comes through. It doesn't come from my head at all. And most people will say, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. So it's about bringing a different perspective in from the animal's point of view, and then allowing people to soften and go, oh my gosh, you're right. Like that feels really good to me. So I'm always trying to help people see things a little differently. And I've learned from the animals. I mean, this is not, I don't have a PhD in anything, this is all on the job training. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the credential it once was anyway anymore in most fields.
no, no, I have none of
So,
those.
so you do workshops. If anyone watching is interested, how would they participate in such a thing?
So my website has a workshop page that is all the workshops that I do and the dates. I do both. I do in person and online. So a lot of my workshops are online, so anyone can join. It's super easy to go and look at the workshops, see which one resonates with you. I've got a great one coming up in February, which is all about connecting to animal and earth spirit medicine and guides. And it's a 4-week class, and each week we work together in a different realm of connecting with animals and communicating with them from the unseen to the seen world. And it's really transformational because it just opens you up to all the possibilities of connecting and receiving guidance. Every day you can ask for guidance. So that's coming up in February. Um,
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
now is that can people attend it remotely or is that in
Yes.
person?
No, it's online.
Remote.
And
Wonderful.
can attend remotely. All the details are on the website, and it's a great entry level, or it's a great reminder, or it's a great take it to the next level. I work with people wherever they're at, and my goal is always to uplift. So it doesn't matter where you are on that journey, this will bring something to you.
And that website, we'll put it in the notes below, but it's niconaturaltherapies.com, right?
Correct. Yes.
At NIKOE naturaltherapies.com.
Correct. Yes. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, this is exciting. Well, I'm excited about that one. I'd like to attend, I think. That sounds really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And just so people know, the name Nico came from the animals that got me on this path. So Naira was the fear aggressive dog that I had that fixed alternatively. Kobo was the dog that died of the vaccine, and Echo was the horse that mentored me for 21 years. So
I wondered about that.
their energy. People think that's my name, and that's fine. I mean, that I take that as an honor. But I really wanted to honor the animals that launched me into this work, and they were the ones that did that. So yeah.
So, what is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience? Any advice or any thoughts? I mean, animals are. I have a question before before I let you answer that one because it just popped into my head.
Okay.
So there was this phenomenon that happened. I think it's been about a year since this stuff really was going on heavily, but it started. There was footage of these sheep that would just go in circles, and it was just sort of a strange phenomenon. They were all going in these big circles, but all of them together. And then other animals were doing the same kind of thing. They would just go in circles and circles. And around the same time, whales were beaching themselves at kind of record numbers. There just seemed to be this big reaction from the animal world. There was a whole bunch of antelope, a ridiculous number of antelope just dropped dead all at the same time. There were birds that fell out of the sky all at one time. Any insight into what might have been contributing to that?
So what comes to mind, so I always ask for guidance. That's why I kind of go quiet. That it's not my human self answering the question and I can receive. So the first thing that kind of came through was, where we have a lot of solar flares, a lot of outside of our planet activity going on and energies happening that are affecting our planet. They're also affecting the people and the beings that are on this planet. So I feel that the solar flares are contributing to some of the activity that's going on in the wildlife kingdom, because they're only in their truth, right? They're not out to please anyone or prove anything. They're just simply showing up in their truth. And so I feel that the solar flares are one. I'm a big proponent that EMF is another one. Every time we expand that 5G, 10G satellite activity, it's having an effect on all of us. And we know it's having an effect on us, and we talk about that a lot, but it's having an effect on the animals too. And so I feel that anytime there's a change there, that frequency and that vibration is confusing the wildlife kingdom, because they don't live in that energy, and it's distorting. That just came through. It's distorting how they show up on the planet, because they're getting misinformation from these frequencies that are coming in that are not the frequencies that they are used to working with. The other thing that, sorry, did you want to say something?
Oh no, no, I was waiting. I thought you might have something
Um,
like.
the other thing that's coming through, that I know is happening, is that we have all kinds of chemical stuff coming down from the sky,
That we
and we
do.
have all kinds of stuff happening in the ocean that's coming up. And I think between all of those things that are happening, um, the whales are just coming through right now. Wow, this is cool. Um, okay, thanks. So their sonars are being knocked off kilter for how their sound bounces off and they navigate and communicate with each other, is being distorted in a place where they don't quite know what they're doing, and then they end up beaching, and now they're beached, but they got sent there rather than choosing to go there. I don't know if does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
think it does.
Okay. um so I think that's what's going on. I think they are living proof of how messed up our planet is, that they can't even navigate their own life, and they've done it for thousands of years. They don't beach. That just doesn't happen on an earth that is balanced. So I think it's another reminder of what's actually happening on our earth, whether we know about it or whether we don't know about it. Things are happening on this earth that really need to be looked at.
Yeah, that question jumped right in front of the other question so much that I forgot what it was. Maybe that was echo too. I don't know.
No, that's such a great question, because it also brings awareness to people. When you see something weird happening in wildlife, there's something weird happening beyond wildlife that they're reacting to. And I think it just brings our attention to it. And I get so passionate about this stuff because I care, so much about the planet. And it's time for us to wake up. Um, something that's coming to me is back in 2016, 17, I was taking a shamanic training out on the West Coast, actually, with Stephen Farmer, who's just been a mentor of mine forever. And we had to do this, we did this journey where we journeyed into the future to see what was happening with the earth. And the journey that I experienced, the earth was flat and black. And in the very center of the earth were all of these people that were light being people. Like they were full of light and energy. And they were in the very center of the earth. And they were all in a holding hands, and they were all almost holding space in that center. And on the outside of that circle, all these people were dropping off the edge of the earth, like leaving the planet. And it was like,
Interesting.
right? And my first
Yeah.
insight was this big change, right? Echo had already told me there was a big change coming, and it was in that same year he told me that this big change in the earth, and that there's, you know, these light beings, which are all of the our light workers, you know, you and me and all the light worker people that are holding that light and shining that beam in the center of the circle. And anyone that couldn't handle that vibration and that frequency and their choice, right, soul choice, were leaving. And it was fascinating to me. And then 2020 happened, and I went, oh my God,
Wow.
there it is. Oh, there's some of it.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but there's some of it. So I feel as we elevate and we're willing to do the work, that we get given the visions that are going to support us to continue doing what we're doing, knowing what's coming so we can be prepared and elevate or connect with other people. Community is huge now. People want to come together and support each other in so many different ways. And I really feel that's moving forward. And that's for all of us. That's all living beings, all living creatures, all elementals, all weather. It's all of it is coming together to shift and change into this new earth. And so we can either go along for the ride, even when it gets challenging, you know, or we can choose not to. And that's what I love about it, is we'll all make that choice, whatever we want to do. But the support is there if you want to come along for the ride.
I love it. I love it. You know, I was just thinking there's more incentive these days to communicate with animals rather than humans, in many ways. You know, with all this division and whatnot. But
Oh, absolutely.
so much to learn, and they seem to have so much information to share because they have such unique perspectives. I often think about we're as creatures on this planet, we're pretty limited in our sensory abilities compared to so many of these animals. You know, birds and with you can see infrared spectrum and all of these other colors that we can't see, and my dog can hear what's going on 2 blocks away, and she can smell everything, and she uses it like GPS to map. I mean, we don't do these things. I mean, we have a lot of mechanical advantages, and we build things to help us along, but you know they do it innately. It seems like if we let them share that information with us, we can learn an awful lot.
It's amazing what we can learn. And I feel that we got driven and guided and directed away from that innate ability to communicate and be at one with earth. Alberto Villoldo calls it domesticated. He says that we,
Ah,
and I love that because that's really how we've become, you know. And it's interesting you talk about sheep, because I'm always referring to people in certain situations as you're just sheep. You're just following along, and you're not questioning anything, and you're not asking anything. You're being driven by fear, and you're like, okay, what do I have to do? And I'll just go do it. And when are we going to wake up and go, why are we doing it? Like, why is like the biggest word I use in everything I do. I'm like that 2-year-old, you know, why?
me too. Me too. My defining characteristic always. It's so funny. Well,
Yeah.
when you're in the wilds and you are connected with everything, I don't know. There's no room for fear. You're connected. You're grounded. But when you get into cities and you're on pavement and people are driven to this consensus behavior where they look to the other person to see how to behave. They're not looking within for any of those cues, and they tend to all start to behave the same way, like those sheep, because there's comfort in that because they're so disconnected.
Yeah,
So
which
that's maybe it's just a function of us of civilizing everything. Is that we've maybe civilized isn't so good. Maybe we need to wild a bit.
yeah, yeah. There's a new term now called rewilding.
Yeah, yeah.
People are taking their land and they're rewilding it. There's somebody down here in this area that is doing that. She has a herd of horses and land, and they're growing their own vegetables and stuff. The horses live out 24/7, and they're literally bringing their piece of land back to what it used to be, rewilding. And I think we need the same. We need to come back inside and trust ourselves. And we've been taught to look outside of ourselves for everything, and so then we've lost that innate ability to be intuitive and trust this that will always tell you the truth, right? This won't, but this will. And I think that's the opportunity that we're in right now, is exploring how to reawaken what we already know. Right? We know it. It's in there. We were born with it.
Got to give yourself permission, I think, to do these things. I've been known to howl at the moon from time to time.
Yeah, why
Not
not?
kidding. Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a good exercise. I really do. I think there's value in that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add before we? This has been such a wonderful interview. But
Oh,
is there anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to add?
um, oh, so many things. I think the most important one is, if you do have an animal in your life, whatever that is, take 5 minutes and sit quietly. You can put some like meditative music on, sit quietly, breathe, be present, put your phone somewhere else where you can't hear it or touch